Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about the construction. Here, actually, in New York, we have some masters of account abstraction in the form of this gaming company called Cartridge. Do you know Cartridge here? Cartridge. Yeah, they are from Cartridge, okay, in blue, and it's a company that is using account abstraction to do very, very cool stuff. So, and they are here in New York, based here, and they are at the top of the frontier regarding account abstraction. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Who here knows what account abstraction is? You know, on what level? Have you coded any account abstraction contracts? No, yet. Okay, but you know the concept, right? Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about why is this important and how can you employ it in the StarkNet. Well, first of all, I think something that was missing in Gal's presentation is the number of developers we are having in the ecosystem. So unfortunately, we have, I don't know if you can see the numbers, but last year was a bad year for the blockchain ecosystem overall regarding the number of developers. We lost a lot of developers, the bear market and so on. So for example, you can see that Ethereum as a whole lost 11% number of full-time developers. That is an awful number. In 1 year, we lost 11%. Bitcoin lost 7%, Solana 32%, and so on. BNB 39%, Cosmos maintained itself 0%. So the top 10 blockchain ecosystems lost a lot of developers, and this is not good for us because the more developers we have, the better the ecosystem, the better the tooling, the better smart contracts, the more innovation we have, right? But what happens when we go to the top 11%, top 11 blockchains in terms of developers? The 11th place is for Starknet, layer 2, and it's the only one growing with 38% number of developers in the top 11 blockchains in terms of count of developers. So what does this mean? We mean that we are growing, even though that the ecosystem is going a little bit down in number of developers. We keep growing because we have an amazing ecosystem, and a lot of developers are very interested in doing very cool stuff. Again, like Cartridge and so on. So this is to me and for us actually in Starknet, this is a sign of future growth. The bigger number of developers we have, the better the network will get. Okay. Any questions until here? It's just some quick introduction on the number of developers. I think it's worth mentioning. So among the layer 2s, we're the layer 2 with the biggest number of developers, the larger number of developers. Also with optimism, this number tends to vary, but it's between Starknet and optimism. They are very, very close. So this is something interesting because a lot of people tend to think, and actually one of the arguments of the zero knowledge EVM platforms is that and the Cairo virtual machine, and Cairo is very hard to use. It's completely different to the EVM. I only know Solidity and so on. So that's why they are building the zero knowledge EVMs, because they are scaling socially, and this is in their words, socially, meaning that they want to scale all the tooling that they have, all the developers that are already in Solidity, and so on. However, this doesn't show in the numbers. We have a lot of developers that are using Cairo, that are using all our tooling, which is good. And well, we have more developers than the other zero knowledge EVMs and other layer 2s. So this is very interesting to me. I was expecting to start to have much less developers than Optimism, than Arbitrum, than CK-Sync, and so on. But the reality is other. So this is very interesting to me. This is information coming from the developer report from Electric Capital. It's not our data. So yes, it's interesting. So Cairo is not that hard. For those interested in getting to Cairo, it's not that hard. Developers are doing it, and I don't know. A lot of time we tend to think that developers are like very delicate, that they only know Solidity and they will always use Solidity all their life. But this is not true. Developers, they use JavaScript when they need to use JavaScript, and then they use Python when they need to use Python. Yeah, and this is the same here. So developers will learn to use Cairo when they need it and when they see the power of a Starknet, which we can see the numbers here. Developers are realizing that. So my name is Omar Espejel. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm a Starknet developer advocate working for the Starknet Foundation, just as Manmeet, and we're going to give a quick talk about smart wallets aka account abstraction, which I think account abstraction is a horrible name, to be honest. I don't know who invented that, but it sounds very, very weird to me. Smart wallets is somewhat better, but the concept here is that we have wallets that can do stuff like smart contracts. That's why it's smart wallets. So what does this mean? We mean that we have a lot of limitations when we are not using a generalization of the accounts. This is the case of the EOAs, externally owned accounts. They have several limitations, and we have seen that a lot of times. And let me give you a quick story about Bravos. We actually have some swag from Bravos down there, but this is a very cool story that they told us. I don't think if this story is public yet. It happened a couple weeks ago, but it's very... Eh? The $12? No, maybe that's another story. Or maybe I don't have the exact number. So you let me know. But this is a very cool story. So there was like there's a famous Brazilian streamer, and he was showing their accounts. I don't know. He was showing something, and accidentally he showed all the seed phrases for their wallet, for his wallets. So immediately, like I don't know, like 1 minute after that, all his wallets were drained. Is that the same story? Yeah, okay. All the wallets were drained. So what happened next? That he realized the only wallet that wasn't drained was Bravos, the Bravos wallet. Why? Because it was using account abstraction, as practically all the wallets on top of Starknet are using account abstraction. So the security is much higher, and this guy was like impressed. Like his MetaMask account was drained, his block wallet was drained, but the Bravos remain with all his money in there. So this is already a huge use case of account abstraction, and we're going to talk about that. So why $12?
That was the hand in the Bravos.
All the money he had was $12. So he committed a mistake. He left the smallest amount in the most secure wallet.
That's what I was says about it.
Okay, but that, do you know if he had an Argent account? Maybe if he had an Argent account, an Argent wallet would have been the same. Like Argent would have keep itself safe, because Argent is also using account abstraction. But well, in this case, Bravos was a success. Okay, so when we have the layer one wallets such as MetaMask, Block Wallet, and so on, we have a bad UX that we have learned to associate with crypto. I have a seed phrase, and that's it, and that's the way crypto works, and it's very hard. But I won't be able to onboard the masses of people because of this, because I don't know, my mom will prefer to use Binance. In case she ever tries crypto, she will do it via Binance, Coinbase, FTX in the past. So you can see the problem here, right? We are giving all the power to these different centralized exchanges, and account abstraction shows another way, because we can eliminate this bad UX, or at least minimize it a lot. So the goal, I think, for me, the goal of account abstraction is to have the same UX and security that you would have in Web2, like having like Instagram, like when you getting your Chase account, something like that. So getting the exact UX that you get with Web2. So, and also it's expensive to use. It's more expensive to use to make transactions using the layer one or other account abstraction in layer one, like with MetaMask. So then we come to the ERC 4337, which is the newest and the most advanced account abstraction proposal on top of Ethereum. And here we're proposing, well, Ethereum proposed certain changes, and also there were also other ERCs that proposed other stuff. And we in the Starknet ecosystem, gather a lot of big brains, the guys from Bravos, the guys from Cartridge, the guys from Argent, the guys from Open Zeppelin, the Ethereum Foundation, the Starknet, and all these, I don't know what happened. All these brains came together to build a new implementation of account abstraction that is taking into account mainly the 4337, but also other opinions, other proposals, other ERCs, and we came with a new account abstraction proposal, which, to my knowledge, and also to the knowledge of most people, this is the most advanced implementation of account abstraction at a protocol level. Actually, if you look at the talks of Vitalik in last year's DevCon, he said that we are like the spearheads, like the canary network the place where they are where Ethereum is experimenting with account abstraction, because we have it already in place. The guys from Cartridge are using it for their games, and the guys from Bravos are using it to keep secure the wallets of hundreds of people. So it's already in place, and it's innovating and innovating. And this is very interesting because it's happening on the layer 2, not on the layer 1. On the layer 1, to do this, we will need to implement a lot of changes at the protocol level, and this will be very hard, if not impossible already. Why? Because there's a lot of money on top of the Ethereum virtual machine, and to do a change like that, implement account abstraction at the protocol level, as with Starknet, would be really, really hard, expensive, would be very difficult for Ethereum to do. So that's why it's being done in the layer 2 level. For example, so you can see it has something like this, Fuel has something like this, but Starknet has the one that is the most active and has the most brains working on it. Several brains, not only the guys from Star Wars, but also people from other places. So sometimes there are some disagreements, which is okay. Like, what is the best way to implement this? But that way we're arriving to a better implementation, to my eyes. So basically, how does account abstraction work when you look at the code? You have a signer. This signer goes into Starknet. Then using this signer has a user account contract, and then it has a target contract. For example, you want to send some resources to another wallet, and it goes through a process that is called the validate and execute process. The key here is the validate part. The validate part will make sure that certain rules are complied. If those rules are complied, then it will execute the transaction or the operation or whatever you're doing. But the key here is the validation part. And since the validation part is a function, you can add practically, I don't want to generalize, but you can add whatever you want practically. Okay, so if this condition complies, for example, I don't know, maybe this user account can only send resources to another specific wallet, or cannot send to this specific wallet. Then it will check if this target contract is not the wallet that is not the blacklist wallet. This is a simple example, yes, but you can have a lot of different examples because it's a function. So you simply add code, and then you will define what you want, and when you want it, you can also add some time. For example, each month you will send a certain amount to this wallet. Okay? And this is something that you cannot program in the layer 1. This is something that you can only do when you have this type of function like validate. I don't know if you have any questions until now, but please stop me. I'm going a little bit fast, but please stop me if you have any question. So if we look at the validate function, it looks like this, and this is actual Cairo code. So as you can see, it looks a lot like Rust, but I don't know if Gal said this, but you don't need to know Rust in order to code with Cairo. Some object-oriented programming is enough. But well, here we have a function that is the validate function. It accepts an array of the calls that you want to validate, and then it returns a failed. And the failed is whether this transaction was valid or not. Yeah? And it depends on a validate transaction function. So let's take a look at that function. Function validate transaction. So here we'll start implementing all the conditions that we want. This is a simple hello world contract, so it doesn't add a lot of different conditions, but in this case it's simply receiving the transaction information, the hash of the transaction, the signature of the transaction, and then it's sending this information to another new function called isValidSignature. It's sending the information and then the signature, and then we will receive whether this transaction was valid or not. So let's take a look to that function, isValidSignature. It will return a boolean, whether true or false, and this function will receive the message that we are sending and the signature, and it will decide according to certain parameter, to certain signature, if this was a valid or not transaction. In this case, we're using the ECDSA signature, so we're checking that particular, which is the most used right now. However, we could use other types of signature, and then with that, we will be able to confirm that this transaction is valid, and we can execute the calls. So this is the workflow. This is the hello world. Inside that, you can add a lot of stuff. I don't know if you have any question until now. Any other comment? I don't know. Maybe the guys from Cartridge want to, at any point you want to talk a little bit more about this part. Maybe you can talk a little about the secure enclave later on the talk, which is something that they are doing. They are at the top of the spear on that. It's very interesting. So yes, this is the implementation. Sorry, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot right now. That is very interesting. To me, it's very interesting. So this is the basic Hello World. Later we will talk about other implementations that are also very cool. And then finally, we execute the transactions. That is it. They execute transactions. If everything is valid, then we execute what we initially asked for. Notice that in a layer 1, without construction, this code will be direct. We will execute whatever is happening. But we won't have all this logic behind it. We're basically executing the calls. We have multi-calls, so we can execute that. Multi-call is something else that we can have with a construction. So we can have several transactions, and we can execute them all at once. So this makes stuff cheaper for us. Any question until now? Any comment, Remo? Perfect. Okay. You have a question? How are we on time, Hanson? Are we all right? Okay. Another thing very cool that we have is counterfactual deployment, and very simply, this is that we can deploy the account contract can deploy itself. So I won't go into details. This is something cool that we have with account abstraction. Basically, the account contract can calculate the address of chain, and then we can fund it, and it can deploy itself. Because since these are because these are smart contracts, then we need to deploy these smart contracts. So that applies for the wallets. If you have a Bravos account or an Argent account, you have to deploy it because it's an actual smart contract, and you can pay for this deployment using something called counterfactual deployment, which is something very cool and fun. Well, let's not go into details. How do you fund it? Yes, first you have to calculate the address of chain. Once you have the address, then you can send resources with any other wallets, or maybe you can use the.
I use my other account to find the address that I want would be.
Exactly. And then you send money to it, resources to it, and then it auto deploys itself. Right? So this is very cool. This is very cool. But I think this is very interesting, and this is why Bravos was not hacked when they used the seed phrases. This is the reason why they were not able to get the resources from there. And the guys here from Cartridge are pioneers on this stuff. I am not an expert on the secure enclave. Maybe the guys from Cartridge can tell us a little bit more. But before that, in the case of Bravos, what they told us is that, and feel free to correct me in a place if I'm wrong, but basically when you sign in your cell phone with your finger, with your face, even with your passport, you achieve a big, you achieve a huge level of security, like state-of-the-art security. And here, when you have a Bravos account, it is not enough for somebody to have your seed phrase. Once they use your seed phrase, like the case of the guy that I told you before, they will not be able to store all your funds. Then you will have, I don't know, 4 to 5 days, something like that, to confirm that this transaction was true with your finger, with your face, with your passport, and then you will be able to move the ownership of that account, right? But that means that you have 2 different criteria here. You have to sign with your cell phone, and also you have to sign with your seed phrase. So it's a double criteria in that case. I don't know if you want to tell us a little more about the secure enclave, how it works. Sure. So they are from Cartridge, a company based here in New York, and they are one of the most important companies in Starknet. They're really state-of-the-art.
So, hey guys, I'm Calvin from Cartridge. I can't really speak to the technical side of this here on Live Equipment, but I can speak to the design side and talk a bit about how it works. So one of the first products that Cartridge built is called the controller, and it's a web wallet designed specifically for games. And one of our goals with the web wallet was to enable WebAuthn to be used as like the technology that generates your seed phrase. So a private key and a public key is generated with your biometrics, so like your face on your phone or your fingerprint on your desktop, and it's all secured in the secure enclave on your Mac if you're using a Mac, or I think Google handles it on Android phones. And this is really nice because that's accessible from different devices. So you'll be able to, if you lose your phone, you can have a backup of your secure enclave on another device. Yeah, so that's kind of how we approached the controller, and it's all enabled by account abstraction, as Omar said. So,
and I think something interesting that they have is that you have these wallets, and you don't even realize that you're using crypto in that sense, because you only sign with your finger, and then you're on, and you have all your assets, but these assets are stored are self-custodial, right? So this is what we want to maintain: self-custodial, and not give access to Binance, to other centralized exchanges. And this is what they did. That is very interesting, right? And
it's a huge UX improvement, and it takes not a lot of time. It takes about 5 seconds. So you just use your face. You're not writing down a passphrase where you're memorizing 24 words. It's all kind of happening under the hood. Yeah, for us for as a gaming company, player experience is very important. So for them to be able to like quickly spin up a web wallet to play a game with just what they're used to logging into their phone is a huge upgrade in functionality.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know, any question for the guys from Cartridge? This is very interesting. I don't know if you're realizing the potential of this. Like, it's like simply using like your Chase account or your bank account. As simple as that, right? It's as simple as that. Everything is self-custodial. You're maintaining the custody of your assets, so nobody will be able to steal the funds from you. Nobody. So this is a game changer. Yes. And this is being done by Bravos, by Cartridge in the sense of gaming, and Wallet. Bravos in the wallet arena, also with Argent. So innovation is coming here, and it's very, very interesting to me. So just to finish, I will give you some resources in case you want to learn a little bit more. You can, for a deeper introduction into account abstraction, you can look at this talk. You can search YouTube by HCC account abstraction, and you will find a lot of talks about this in HCC. And you can have also a deep dive into the code by David Barreto. Just search in Google David Barreto account abstraction Starknet, and you will find an introduction. And also we have the Starknet book, so feel free to go into a Starknet book and Google it, and you will find it. And there we have a whole number of tutorials on account abstraction. And if any of you want to practice, we're updating our workshop on account abstraction. We have it, but it's using the previous version of Cairo. So if you want to contribute there, please let me know, and you can practice your account abstraction abilities and also your Cairo abilities. And that will be it. Thank you very much. Just as a summary real quick, you can have something that allows you to generalize how a wallet functions, how a wallet works, what is the meaning of a wallet. And this is huge for security, for user experience. And to me, those two things are key, and we can find it in the Bravos case, we can find it in the Cartridge case, and this is going to get very hot. It's going to, I think it's something that will, I don't want to say save, but it will improve or onboard a lot of developers from Ethereum. I think that with the Cartridge wallet, I can actually onboard my mom. As simple as that. It's like getting to your accounts, your bank account. It's as simple as that. So thank you very much. I don't know if you have any question until now. Otherwise, thank you very much.